Good morning, Moms Master Books, and everybody in the app. We hope that you're having a good morning. Hey, I am joined this morning by Josh Dudley. Josh is son of Tim Dudley, the president of New Leaf Publishing Group and Master Books. Josh is actually this year, you are sales, EPUB, customer service.
A little bit of everything.
Name it all, yeah. So at some point, Josh will be my boss, and so it's good for him to be here and under rapid fire with questions. So you grew up here, right?
Right. Yep. 30 years old and been involved pretty much my whole life.
Yeah. So New Leaf Publishing Group is 40 years. So, and I think your dad about 20 years ago, your dad stepped into the role of leader.
Right. Yep. Back in 1992, I think.
Yeah. So you've been in the summer, Josh and I, Josh packed a lot more boxes than I did, but we spent a lot of time packing back orders, and we actually work in the marketing department together, and Brittany's out. So I thought, hey, good to bring Josh in, and he can do some rapid fire questions. So we're going to get to your questions, Q&A, and as best as we can, we'll try to watch what's happening as well on the screens. So, okay.
So it looks like Caitlin Morris has a question. She has one boy who is slow and one who is too fast and careless when it comes to work. Tips for helping them speed up or give more attention.
Okay. So sometimes you got to get to the root of that, I think, where like, is one going slow because they're a perfectionist, they're trying to they're very detailed, and sometimes I think you have to be conscious of that. So you don't want to overload that student with too much work. And I think you want to also kind of teach them how to work efficiently and effectively, right? So some of my kids can blow through their work, but very sloppy, very careless, but then they're done. They get, all I got to do is get my work done and I move on. Others, Brittany is one of them, who is a perfectionist, and she would sit there all day making sure her handwriting was so neat and that she answered all the questions right. And it's kind of teaching her how to work efficiently and effectively, and then teaching the kids who just blow through it and don't necessarily take time to do a good job, how to slow down. What I like to do is think of how they're going to be as adults. If this child was working for me someday, what would I want them to do? How do I want them to, do I want them just to blow through the work and say, hey, I'm done, what do you want me to do next? Or do I want them actually to take some pride in their work? And so for the student that's rushing through things, helping them learn how to take pride in their work. For the student who's going slow, teaching them, sometimes there are some things we need to be effective on and really do a good job. Other things we can cut corners with and kind of how to prioritize and efficiently manage our time. So look at it from the standpoint of not exactly where they are today as students, but where do I want them to be in their 20s and 30s when they're working for people, and then kind of customizing to the individual. That would be my tip on that.
All right. Next question is from Lauren. How many days a week will stepping stones be? And second part to that is, will language lessons for Living Education 1 be 5 days a week?
Language Lessons for Living Education 1 is 5 days a week. If you do the accelerated track, there's 2 schedules in Language Lessons for Living Education 1. One would be that you do Foundation Phonics in the first semester, and then Language Lessons 1 in the second semester. In that case, it's 5 days a week. If your student is already reading and you wanted to do Language Lessons 1, then it would be, I think it's like 3 days or 4 days a week. A schedule would be over the course of the year. So the Facebook too, we have to scroll down on those. It doesn't automatically scroll anymore for some reason. So, and as far as stepping stones, I don't know. I should have gotten an answer to that. We'll find an answer, or if Carrie Bailey is watching and is able to, or anybody else then that may know the answer to that, if you could put it in, that'd be great.
All right, next would be a question about Knowledge Quest. Will it be a supplemental for history courses, or is it going to be its own separate geography curriculum? or both?
Yeah, Knowledge Quest will be a standalone course. So it would be used, we will have the ability to supplement from it, but Knowledge Quest is a publishing company that we bought. They have a lot of different products. So they have like is it Map Track, the cover we were working
Yes.
Map Track, which is just maps that you can use with history courses. They have timelines. They have different books from different time periods. Then they have the geography through history courses for kids. Those are separate courses as well. So they will complement each other when we're all said and done, but they will not replace or just be add-ons to what we currently have.
Looks like Pamela just asked, said she's going to be up our way in February and asked if she could come by and see us.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Just call and make sure our office hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And usually if you were to just call the 800 number and ask if it's okay to stop in, yep, we can give you a tour, show you the warehouse, and you can shop, scratch and dent, and you name it.
all right. Ashley asked, she'll be homeschooling for the first time. Could she do the same science and history for a second grader and a fourth grader?
You can. You just have to be conscious that especially at those ages, children are so developmentally different. So expect more from the fourth grader, expect less from the second grader. Maybe the second grader watches a little bit more, have the older student do some reading, more reading than the younger student, but you can certainly combine. You know, I think there's a bit of an art to it, right? And you have to, I call it growth hacking. You have to do trial and error. Every student is different, every parent is different, every curriculum is different. So there's no easy answer to that question. It's more, yes, you can have multiple ages working in almost any book, but you have to customize it. It doesn't just happen. You know, you're going to see that the second grader is going to need things lightened up a little bit.
Looks like Stephanie has going back to Knowledge Quest, is it mostly for junior high, high school, or elementary?
Knowledge Quest, depending on the course and the books, but I think it's designed to be used for multi-ages. And the way that you would do it. Now, how we end up settling it, when we look at it, we evaluate it. Some of that, it's too early to really tell you how it's going to land. I know Kristen's evaluating it right now, and the editors are evaluating it right now, and just kind of getting a feel for what's all available and then what's going to be the best way to merchandise it. So those answers will be forthcoming, but we probably don't have solid answers right now on it.
Got a question from Sarah about the God's Design for Beginners, the next one in the series, which would be Heaven and Earth, asking about when that would be available.
So it's written, the files are in-house. They need to be laid out and designed. The desire would be to have it by the August, the busy season August. So that would be the desire to have. But it's not officially on the project list yet. And there's a lot of issues that take a book to go from project into the project list where it gets queued up. So out in front of the headlights, I'm going to say it'll be available for this late summer or beginning of next school year.
This next question is perfect for you. She asked if you have any tips on how to teach 7 children. She has 2 that are independent and the rest kind of rely on her. Any tips for her?
Yeah. See, that's a good question for Kristen, because Kristen did most of the teaching. But Master Books is set up really to transition students to be responsible for their own learning. And so if you have a schedule, like I would recommend a schedule, at 9 o'clock we start school and everybody's expected to be in their school place with their schoolwork open and in front of them. Now, some students, maybe your family would do better to say, you know what, we do our chores in the morning and at 1 o'clock school starts and we work from 1 to 5 or whatever. But having a schedule definitely helps. And then as kind of pushing the burden of it over to the student. And Master Books is set up, it's designed so the student reads and answers the questions or reads and does the activity, minimal involvement from the parent, or as involved as a parent wants to be. So when you have multiple ages, you you have to be careful one or two students don't demand all the attention and others kind of get left behind, right? You need to sometimes make it very clear that, okay, you need to go work on your own now. This is a quiet time. Even in companies, I've worked for companies that have quiet time where every morning from 9:30 to 11:30, it's just quiet. You're just working. You're not allowed to interrupt. You're not allowed to talk. And so people can get done, their work done. And then we can see what needed to be done and stuff like that. So you could even implement something like a no talk time or a no interruption time where they're just expected to do as much schoolwork as you can without help and kind of begin preparing them for that. The big one that I would say is reward the behavior you want. So when the student does take the initiative to do it right and invest themselves, even if they don't get all the work right, make a big deal about the fact that you see that they took initiative and that they really tried to do it themselves. That's, it's easy to punish the behavior we don't want, but we really have to be aware of rewarding the behavior we do want, because as people, that's how we're built. We're designed to enjoy recognition and praise, and because that's part of belonging and who we are. So.
Yeah. Stephanie has a question about any thoughts on a health curriculum or a physical education guide.
I know that there are good curriculums available. I would definitely do health from a Christian publisher. We don't have one yet. I know that there is proposals, and I've seen some proposals. For physical education, there are curriculums available for that. We typically would enroll karate or some kind of physical activity that the students were doing that was getting them physical activity. So that was one thing, or just being aware of that. I even for a while did like twice a week or once a week a co-op type gym class where the kids would go out and we would just do calisthenics. And then, it's amazing how many homeschoolers don't know how to play kickball. So teaching them how to play kickball or something like that, just some basic games that maybe the rest of the world knew, but just wasn't common to everybody else. So, if you have, what's the Big Air? Is that the name of the house? Like in this area, we have Big Air, which is a trampoline house up in Branson. We have Fritz's Family Adventure, which is like, it's crazy that it's even legal. In New York, it would have foam padding everywhere, but it's like all these amazing ladders and slides and
zip lines and stuff.
Zip lines, yeah. So just stuff like that for physical activity. I think as long as they're getting physical activity and they're growing in development.
Looks like we have a question from Carla about Israel Wayne's new Bible curriculum. Any updates on that?
No, don't have an update on it. It's not on the list yet. I think he's working on it, but there's no, it's not an official project yet.
Looks like Diane's asking about American Geography set. When would that be coming out?
That is being worked on. I know Craig is writing it, has written it. So we're looking at that to be available in the summer. 2 catalogs this year. There's a spring catalog and a summer catalog. It's not in the spring catalog. So that should make the summer catalog, which means it would probably be available in August and September.
On that same topic, Kathleen asked about if we what new high school level curriculum will be coming out this year.
We have a physics, the master class, biology, chemistry. Physics is coming out. That's exciting. We have an Algebra 2 that will be coming out. So those are 2. Those will be later in the year. Those aren't in the spring catalog, but those are 2 exciting high school courses. The world history has been colorized. It will be updated. It'll now include Henry Morris's So Noted, which is a Bible study on Genesis, and that's been revised. The American history is now color, and that's been revised. So that'll be updated and coming out this year. So those are 4 exciting kind of revisions and new courses that are coming out. I think that's all I know.
I think you covered most of it. Yeah.
There may be an elective coming out with 2 more of the Bible books, kind of
the cultural issues.
Cultural issues too.
Second volume of that.
Yep. But that's, again, most of those are going to happen in the second part of the year.
All right, I got a question from Natalie. She says she's new to Master Books. When the language level 1 comes out soon, are there going to be any instructions on how to use the other books that are supposed to be done with the course?
Yes, there are instructions. I know this because I heard Kristen talking about it yesterday, that there are instructions in using the books and how to, like, what you should be expecting. Language Lessons 1 is more robust, has more instruction, more work in it than basic language skills, and I think a little bit more instruction.
Okay, Terry had a question. Why is this company so pushy in this group? We don't allow mothers to private message each other and help each other out.
That's a good question. So in our group, we have rules. This group is sponsored by Master Books. So we started this group. We've invested a significant amount of resources, time, and money into managing this group and keeping this group on track. We have moderators, we have staff that are paid to be in this group. A big part of what I do every day is just keeping the groups moving forward. And we can't stop anybody from private messaging somebody. So that's, you can private message anybody you want. What we don't allow, or what we don't encourage, is people private messaging and then posting saying, I private messaged you. Early on when we started the group, we had competitors who would come into our group. Somebody would ask a question about writing strands. Somebody from another curriculum would say, I'm PMing you. I use a different curriculum and I'm going to PM you. And it became problematic because we have a group that's designed to talk about Master Books curriculum. And that's what we spend our energy doing. There are plenty of groups that talk about other curriculums, plenty of groups that talk about general homeschooling topics. And we encourage people to be in other groups. But this group is a Master Books group. And we ask that people respect the rules that we have to keep the topics on point and to keep conversation flowing. We also had people who would come in. In our group, we have 18,000 moms. It's a perfect demographic to market to. If I want to market, some supplemental drink, or I want to market essential oils, or I want to be marketing vaccine information, whatever, this is a perfect demographic to market to. And so we had people who are coming into this group and they were PMing members in the group. And if we find out that somebody is PMing unsolicited emails, we removed those people from the group because that was happening. People were coming in and they were marketing to the group. So I think, and I saw the thread, and I got to say, the assumptions that a company isn't Christian because they have rules in place to keep things in order and done decently is unfair. And I think in some ways it's almost, I pastored, and we had a certain style of worship, and the service went a certain way, and the way we conducted things would be a certain way, and people would come into the church sometimes and they would begin demanding, why don't you do Hillsong, or why don't you do, Bethel worship, because we like that worship. And it wasn't what we did. It wasn't who we were. And in some ways, it's even a touch narcissistic to demand that a group do something different than what they were designed to do. And so Master Books, the way we run this group, we do it very intentionally, and we try our hardest to serve this community and answer questions regarding Master Books curriculum. We provide extra resources like teaching tips and try to give help that way. We have a team of moderators that are exceptional, encouraging moms and helping moms. We have kind of the moderator, Jessica McCullough. She's a mom who homeschools. She became part of this group. She was a valuable part of this group. We asked her to take probably the hardest job, which was to police the group. And so if somebody breaks rules and stuff like that, she's the one who has to say, guys, you can't do that. But that helped relieve so much stress from what we were doing every day. And she has the harsh job, but she does it very well. She does it in love, and she's just doing what we've asked her to do. I don't think Master Books is harsh. I think it's just we're trying to keep the group in order. There is a video that I did about why we do what we do, why we have rules the way we do. I would encourage anybody to watch that video. Our phone number is 800-999-3777. Anytime somebody has a question, you're welcome to call, ask for Randy, and I'm happy to answer that question as well. I know there was also a comment on that thread, if I'm not mistaken, about other curriculums and master books position. The only curriculum that we take a stance on is the Good and the Beautiful, and that's because the worldview that's presented in the curriculum. And we've made that known, and we are not afraid of competition. I love companies, evangelical Christian companies. ACE, School of Tomorrow, fantastic company. Abeka, BJU, Alpha and Omega. I love those companies. I've sold those companies, represented a bunch of those companies. They have a heart for training up the next generation. I care about them deeply. Apologia. Christian companies, we're not afraid of competition. We serve a unique market. So it's not about competition, but I'm not going to be quiet and stand by when I believe that information is presented in a way that could be harmful. And you may disagree with me. I'm happy to have the conversation offline regarding that. But I actually took a call from a mom yesterday who called, and she had called me earlier, but she called just to say, yeah, what you said was right. And I didn't realize it, but I'm seeing it woven into the comments and the teaching, and it's having an effect on our family. And so I respect that. And we're not out looking for that battle. But when it comes into this group, and that's what was happening, this group is Master Books, and all of a sudden there were discussions about other curriculums coming in that in all good conscience, we can't stay quiet. So that's kind of where we are on that. And again, anybody who has a question or concern, you're welcome to call me. And I'm happy to explain why I have the position I have, and why we run the group the way we do.
Very good. A question, do you have any tips for a 9-year-old boy who absolutely hates writing?
I think in that case, some of it, 9 years old is kind of young, right? I remember the moment I became, I fell in love with writing. I was in 3rd grade, and I drew a picture, and it was of an airplane, and the teacher said, why don't you write a story about your picture? And I did, and it was, probably wasn't that good, but you would have thought that it deserved the Nobel Prize, because she took it, she put it on the wall, she made a little frame for it, and she just made a huge deal. Like, she rewarded the behavior she wanted with me. And then it happened again in about 7th or 8th grade, where a teacher took a minute to say, wow, you are so good at communicating your ideas in writing. You could be a writer. I don't think I was that good, but I think that little bit of affirmation was enough to really make me begin to build confidence. So my recommendation would be, and writing isn't the only way to communicate, get them to start communicating verbally, and then maybe translating it to paper. Be creative in ways to get them to express themselves, but when they do, don't make it academic, make it personal.
Good. Question about cursive writing. Do we think it's important, and do we plan on coming out with anything with cursive writing?
We do think cursive writing is important, and a lot of the original documents are written in cursive, so I think it's important students can read that. Master Books is a curriculum company. We've been in business for over 40 years, providing apologetics and apologetics materials. As far as homeschool curriculum, we've been dedicated to that line of publishing since 2012. So we've produced a significant amount of curriculum in those 7 years now, and continue to. So there are handwriting proposals. There are acquisitions to be made, maybe, but right now we've been working on core courses. So we have math. Math is up to Algebra 2, which is exciting. The history, we're finalizing a lot of those. Sciences, we're finalizing a lot of those. We have good electives. So handwriting, as we continue to develop our elementary courses, is something that we absolutely will have. So,
very good. Question from Gail. If a student finishes language level 6, would they be ready to move on to Jensens, the Jensens series?
Our recommendation would probably be language lesson 6 into writing strands. So you finish 6, take the placement test, and then place them in writing strands. Jensens is a challenge, and so we recommend, I know the original Jensens scope and sequence was lower. We would recommend Jensens more as a high school level grammar course.
Question from Mallory. She loved the first level of the Adventures in Creation and plans to do the second one when it comes out. Can we tell her what the book is going to be focused on in this second version?
Yeah, it's on physics, and most of that is written and in-house. I think there's already a template for it. It is actually making the spring catalog, so it's expected to be available March, April.
Question from Sonia. She recently did the math placement test with her little guy. He aced the level 1 and had a few errors in level 2. Would you advise that she waits until later in the spring and retest him, because she plans on purchasing the math in the fall?
Yeah, so that's a readiness test more than, right? So if he did well in level 1, that would mean he's ready to do level 1. And I don't think it would hurt to do the placement test again in the fall. If he's ready, he may be able to accelerate through level 1 fairly quickly. So it's skill-based, right? More than it is grade-based. So, I mean, you definitely know he's ready to move into level 1 based on the results of your testing. And yeah, if you wanted to do a little bit more, you're probably good at just starting at level 1.
Question from Melissa. Her son is an excellent reader, but only at a 6th grade level in the language arts. Although he's technically in 8th grade, she hasn't used master books yet, but so she would love some recommendations on which level to start at.
Can you say it again in the beginning?
Her son's an excellent reader, but he's only at a 6th grade level in language arts. Technically, he's in 8th grade, and she hasn't used master books before, so she's wanting recommendations on which level of the language to start him in. Yeah,
so I would go skill-based. I would use the placement test for language lessons for living education or the writing strands. You could probably do either of those at that level. He would probably go back to like the beginner or beginner 1, 2 of writing strands. But I would look at that. I would look at that. I transferred into a private school in 8th grade from public school, and I was tested and had to go back to do 5th grade learning gaps in grammar and math. And it didn't kill me at all. And I'm thankful that I actually got to fill in the gaps rather than just you're in 8th grade to do 8th grade work. So yeah, I would recommend, though, there's placement tests for both writing strands and it's a placement guide for writing strands and language lessons. I would look at both of those.
All right. We had a question about the World Story 2. It has the dog deeper section in it. And she asked, she's not entirely sure what the goal is with it. Are the students supposed to look into other books, search the internet, or just think of something on their own? Yeah, it's dig deeper. Spell check. Dig deeper. Yeah.
Digging deeper is really, it's just that. It's if you want to go a little bit farther in learning more about the course, or you want to do some extra assignments, that would be outside the course. So you could definitely search the internet if that's something your family does. You could go to the library, get an additional book on it, just have discussion about it. Those are recommendations to thicken the course a little bit if you so chose to, or if your student is showing real interest, maybe just kind of a teaser of this is where you could go on that.
All right, I'm kind of running out of questions. I've scrolled back up and it looks like Sherry asked about, will there ever be an option in the future to offer history or science as an audio version?
Yeah, we're looking at the audio. I know if you download the PDFs, There are readers that can read it. It's not ideal, right? But yeah, there's value to it. And we see that value to it. The amount of resources that it takes to do that is considerable to do it and do it right. And we used to sell a lot of curriculum that also had audiobooks, and people would purchase it, but they didn't purchase. The ratio of people who bought the textbook and the audiobook was significantly lower. And it's something at some point that will be available, I would imagine, but it's not on the project list right now, just because there's not the demand for it, even though there's a desire for it. Hopefully that made sense.
All right. You talked about the Adventures in Creation, the physics course coming out. What grade is that going to be for?
That'd be for grade 2. So you have Adventures in Creation, and then that's level 1. Adventures in Physics would be level 2. And the series name for that whole course is Let's Talk Science.
All right. Christina asked, the world story, could that count for a high school credit?
Well, on the author's website, she does have some recommendations for how to turn that into a high school level course. We don't feel that it was in and of itself. If you did all 3 books in 1 year, I think then you could say that there was enough depth to it to do that. And again, you're the teacher, and the curriculum is tools. So just what you want to make sure is that they're getting the equivalent. And there's so much information online that you can find out what does high school, what does a typical high school history course teach, and then do they match up? We feel that the world story is very well suited in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then the Stobaugh World and American is suited for the high school level. Some of that is because Stobaugh, his style asks more open-ended questions, and so it's asking the student to develop their own thoughts about the world around them, and it's a little higher level thinking, and so that's the natural progression that we recommend.
Amber asked how the development of Language Lessons 1 is coming along.
That's written. I think the whole course has been laid out by design. It's in review. In fact, I believe yesterday Kristen went through and did a whole review of it. It's coming back to design this week. Those changes will be made. It'll be sent to proofers. I know that's Tim's, one of his top priorities is getting that before convention season. So I would expect that to be available probably in March.
All right, Sonia asked, do you think the Big Thoughts basket would be good for morning time for a 5- and 7-year-old?
Yeah. I think that, with morning basket, everybody does a little different. There's no rules, right? So it's just, let's use that as a teaser and talk about the concept and learn a little bit more about it. So I think that would be great for that age group. Yep.
Brittany asked, what is your opinion on accredited curriculum? Do children actually go to colleges from using only master books curriculum?
Yes. Accredited curriculum, there really is no accredited curriculum. There's accredited institutions. I could say we are the we're the accrediting agency for creation-based curriculums, and master books is accredited with that agency. So I could say that, right? That's the way it goes. There are schools that are accredited, but there isn't a curriculum that's accredited. So as far as that goes, as far as the courses go, it's the transcript that matters. It's the SAT scores or ACT scores that matter. It's not necessarily the curriculum you use. Curriculum are tools, they're books. You don't, a professor can go in and use any books. They could use library books as long as they're teaching the materials and the competency is there. And, we have people on staff here whose children have used master books and gone to college and have done very well and graduated college. Craig's daughter just graduated and she's teaching. Andrew's in school as well at Evangel. So, as far as getting into college, what our recommendation is look at the universities you would most likely want to go to. in this area. If I wanted to go to a secular university, we could look at University of Arkansas. If we wanted to go to a Christian university, we could look at Liberty University. Look at their admission requirements. That's what you need to worry about. Usually they'll tell you what ACT scores they want or SAT scores they want. And then, and we recommend taking like a PSAT test or the pre-test, or I think ACTs have a pre one too. And seeing how they score on that. Maybe you have to get some supplement to help them understand how to do test taking and that type of thing, because it's a little different than the format. But then you want your transcript looking right. You want to make sure that if they want 4 years of math, that you have that on the transcript, and 4 years of science with labs, that the documentation is all there. So that's the recommendation. We have hslda.org, Homeschool Legal Defense Association, has excellent resources on transcripts and the laws and all of that type of thing. We highly recommend becoming a member of HSLDA.
It's like Sherry has a question about, she has a second grader, a fourth grader, and a sixth grader, and is asking if we have any science that could possibly, she could combine and they could do together.
Yeah. Well, the God's Design for Life and the God's Design for Beginner is one, right? God's Design by the end, hopefully by next school year, God's Design for the Heaven will also be available. So you could use that in the same way. So you could transition into, you'd have a beginner for heaven and then the traditional for heaven as well. So that would be like the best next step for you if you're enjoying what you're doing.
Sam was asking about a phone number to contact you.
1-800
999-3777.
Yep.
Melissa asked, is it easy to transition into master books after using a different curriculum?
I think anytime you switch curriculums, you're going to have different educational philosophies. So you definitely want to use the placement test. And that's what I would, and then just getting used to it. If you're used to, like sometimes ACE School of Tomorrow would be one curriculum where you read a paragraph, answer questions, read a paragraph, answer questions. And maybe the math is more mastery based. Then you switch into a curriculum like Master Books, which uses a lot more application, where it's like knowledge and context. And that's where you're going to find it may just be a different way of thinking. And so sometimes it's because we're used to, this is how we do school, and now we're doing school with a little bit different educational philosophy. But I don't think, a lot of the moms can certainly comment here, but I don't think the transition into Master Books has been difficult, because it's not like the intensity of the work is going up. They're focusing on, I'd say the intensity of the work goes down while the application goes up.
I think I'm out of questions for right now.
All right. Well, good. Well, we will also go through, and if there's anything that we need to answer in both the app and in the Moms Master Books, we will do that. I appreciate you joining me today. So,
hopefully I can fill in Brittany's shoes well. I know you guys were wanting her today, but hopefully I did okay.
She styles though. We gotta have her style.
Not as pretty as her. Sorry.
And we wouldn't know what Josh looks like without a hat, so it's important that he wore the hat. Exactly. So occasionally, there's a funeral we were at recently, and you didn't have the hat on. I didn't even know who you were.
I don't wear a hat. It requires me to, comb my hair.
Everybody needs to know. So, hey guys, well, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to answer questions, and hopefully this was helpful. And we look forward to seeing you online. We'll talk to you later.